Women whose wedding was cancelled, what did you do about it? I always thought wedding mornings were supposed to be full of jitters, champagne, and last-minute hair disasters, not cryptic texts from soon-to-be relatives. But there it was. He's finally doing what's right. Everything's off, Judith mom-in-law. That was it. No good morning. No punctuation, just a grenade lobbed straight into my chest. I stared at my phone, willing the words to vanish, to mean something else, anything else. Everything's off. I blinked, my heart thudded so loud I could barely hear my maid of honor, Tasha, humming as she adjusted her lashes in the mirror. What's wrong? She asked, catching my pale expression. I handed her the phone with trembling hands. Her face twisted in confusion, then fury. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Did Ethan send anything? I shook my head, already dialing his number. No answer. I tried again. Voicemail. Tasha was already pacing, her curls bouncing with every step. Maybe it's a mistake. Or maybe Judith's just being her usual snake self, who texts something like that on a wedding day. I knew Judith. Everyone did. She never liked me. Never said it outright, but it was in every cold smile. Every innocent jab about my job, my family, my dress. She didn't want me marrying her golden boy, Ethan, and now she'd gotten what she wanted. Or so she thought. Tasha grabbed my shoulders. We're not freaking out? You're getting dressed. We're going. If he's not there, then he's the one who has to explain, not you. My gown was already hanging, glittering like a dream I'd clung to for years. But now it felt like a costume for a part I'd been cut from last minute. I got dressed anyway, and I showed up. What I saw when I arrived at the venue. That's when everything flipped. The moment the nightmare started, not for me, but for them. The moment I stepped out of the car, heels clicking on the cobblestone driveway, the whispers began. It wasn't the usual gasps over a bride's arrival. No, she looks stunning. Or it's finally happening. Instead, the kind of murmurs you'd hear at a funeral, soft, uneasy, laced with pity. Tasha helped me out of the car, jaw clenched. They didn't cancel the ceremony. She was right. The courtyard was still decorated, white roses twined around the arch. Chairs lined up in perfect rows. A string quartet playing a nervous version of Canon. Indeed, but something was off. Ethan was nowhere in sight. Neither was Judith. Instead, I saw Ethan's cousin, Marcus, standing at the altar with a clipboard in one hand and a face that screamed damage control. As I approached, guests turned to stare. Some stood. A few rose from their chairs entirely. And then I saw her, Judith, marching down the aisle. Not toward me, but toward Marcus. What the hell is she doing here? She hissed, not even bothering to whisper. I stopped at the head of the aisle, clutching my bouquet with white knuckles. You said everything was off. Judith's eyes went wide. She hadn't expected me to show. You weren't supposed to come, she spat. Well, I'm here, I said. So, where's Ethan? That's when the real chaos started. A woman in a red dress, tight, floor length, definitely not invited, walked out from behind the side doors, leading to the private rooms. She wasn't holding Ethan's arm, but she might as well have been. The smug smile on her face told me everything I needed to know before I even recognized her. Her name was Vanessa, Ethan's ex-fiancée. The same woman who'd left him 3 years ago for a richer man. The same one who'd reappeared in town just 2 weeks ago by coincidence. And now, she was here, on my wedding day, with my fiancé. The murmurs turned to gasps as Ethan stepped out behind her, tugging at his collar like a schoolboy caught cheating on a test. Ethan, my voice cracked. He didn't even meet my eyes. Judith walked over to them, placing a hand on Vanessa's back like she was already family. He's finally doing what's right, she said aloud, as if quoting her text to me. This is the woman he truly belongs with. I laughed loud, sharp, incredulous. You planned this. You waited until the morning of my wedding to tell me. Ethan looked at me then, guilt painted all over his face, but still not a word from his mouth. You knew, I said, my voice cold now. You couldn't even be man enough to tell me yourself. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. He didn't want to hurt you. Tasha lunged. Girl, say one more word and I swear. I held up a hand. No. Let her. Let all of them. I turned to the guests, raising my voice. So, for anyone confused, the wedding isn't off because of me. It's off because my fiancé decided to run back to his ex like a coward, and his mother encouraged it. Gasps rippled through the crowd again. And now phones were out, cameras, live streams. Perfect. I walked up the steps to the altar and turned around. I spent months planning this wedding. I paid for most of it. And now I'm going to enjoy the day, even if I'm the only one standing here. Marcus looked at me, eyes wide. Wait, what are you doing? I smiled. I'm throwing a party. Tasha whooped beside me. Hell yeah, you are. I ripped off the veil and tossed the bouquet into the crowd. Let's eat. Let's drink. And let's toast to dodging bullets. Judith hissed, you'll regret this. I laughed again, already walking toward the open bar. You'll be the one regretting this, Judith. Trust me? What? None of them knew, not Ethan, not Judith. Not even Vanessa was that I had my own secret, and it was going to ruin everything for them. There's something magical about champagne, how it bubbles up, tickling your nose just before it hits your tongue. I sipped mine slowly, watching the crowd fracture into little cliques of chaos, like ants disturbed from their neat little line. The wedding I was supposed to have had become a spectacle, but I didn't care anymore, because I had a plan, a very public one. The moment Ethan decided to betray me, he forfeited the right to dignity. I was just making sure the world knew the truth. Your ex looks like he's seen a ghost, Tasha whispered, watching Ethan pace near the garden steps with Judith and Vanessa, trailing behind him like overdone shadows. That's not fear, I said. Not yet. I pulled out my phone and opened a secure folder in my gallery. Screenshots, emails, a voice memo, evidence I'd started collecting it all 2 weeks ago. When something about Ethan shifted, late-night texts, phone calls he took outside, excuses that didn't quite add up, and then I saw them, at a hotel, Vanessa and Ethan, laughing over wine. I wasn't the kind of woman to confront before I was ready. I wanted receipts, and now, I had them all. I tapped my mic on the DJ's speaker stand and smiled at the crowd, who had started to gather again, curious, half expecting me to cry or scream. "Hi everyone," I said, voice bright and cheerful. "Thank you for coming. I know today hasn't gone as expected, but since we're all here, dressed up, with nowhere else to be, I thought I'd share a little story about love, betrayal, and karma." There were nervous chuckles. A few people sat back down. Tasha crossed her arms and gave me a proud little nod. "This story stars a man named Ethan," I continued, turning toward him, "and a woman named Vanessa. You see, Vanessa dumped Ethan years ago for a rich man. But when that didn't work out, she came back. And poor Ethan, he just couldn't resist." Vanessa's face drained of color. Ethan took a step forward. "Okay, that's enough." I held up a hand. "I'm not done." I tapped a button on my phone and a recording filled the air. "She still thinks you're going to marry her. Let her pay for everything, then ghost her last minute. It'll be hilarious." Vanessa's voice, clear, cruel, unmistakable. The crowd gasped. A few people turned to stare at her.
Ethan lunged toward the speaker. Tasha stepped in between them like a linebacker. "Oh, you're not going to silence me today," I said sweetly. I kept going. Email screenshots now. Projected onto the big screen they had set up for wedding videos. How poetic. Text from Ethan to his friend about how he was milking the engagement, using me to cover wedding costs, and how Vanessa was the one that got away. Judith shouted, "This is slander, lies." I turned to her, eyes glinting. Funny coming from someone who signed a fake vendor invoice to skim money off her son's wedding budget. Her mouth clamped shut. More gasps. "Yeah," I said. "I knew. You overcharged for the catering, pocketed the extra, so I sent the invoices to the IRS. You'll be hearing from them soon." She actually stumbled back. I looked out at the stunned audience, friends, family, co-workers, people who'd known me as sweet, quiet, loyal, the girl who planned every detail of her big day with a hopeful smile. Not today. Today, they saw me for what I really was. The storm they never saw coming. I raised my glass. To new beginnings, and to cutting off rot before it spreads. Tasha clinked her flute to mine. Cheers to that. As the DJ kicked up a new song at my request, guests started dancing, talking, laughing. And Ethan? He stood frozen, jaw clenched, while Vanessa hissed curses in his ear. Judith stormed off toward the valet, dragging her heels across the pavement like a scorned Disney villain. The day was no longer a wedding. It was a reckoning. And I wasn't even done yet. The sun was setting by the time most of the guests had either gone home or decided to stay and celebrate with me, the woman left at the altar, who turned her disaster into the event of the year. People always said I was too soft, too accommodating, too forgiving. Not anymore. Tasha came over, holding 2 glasses of wine. Vanessa's gone. Judith too. Guess they couldn't take the heat. Good, I said, because the kitchen's still on fire. Ethan was the only one who stayed. He'd been sulking at the back, near the fountain, probably trying to figure out what to say if anything could even save him. I wasn't sure if he was in shock, guilt, or just embarrassed that the world saw who he really was, so I gave him a reason to leave. I approached him slowly, heels echoing over stone, and handed him an envelope. He stared at it. "What's this? A bill?" He blinked. "What? You used me, Ethan. Let me foot the bill for the wedding while you ran around behind my back. So here it is, your share." Inside was a detailed breakdown of every cost I'd covered, down to the napkins. I wasn't asking for emotional closure. I was asking for money.
"You're crazy," he said, scoffing. "You can't be serious." "I am, and you'll find a copy already sent to your email. If I don't get the payment in 30 days, I'll be taking legal action." His eyes narrowed. "You're out for blood now." "No," I said calmly. "I'm just making sure the next woman doesn't have to clean up your mess." He opened his mouth, but I didn't care what he had to say. I was done listening. I walked away, let him stew in his own disgrace. But the best part, that was still coming. I walked to the edge of the terrace, where a small crowd had gathered for one last toast. The DJ dimmed the music. Everyone turned as I took the mic one more time. "I want to thank everyone who stayed. Today didn't end with vows or a kiss, but it ended with truth. And honestly, I think that's better." A few people clapped. Tasha whistled. But before we all go back to our lives, I wanted to share one last thing. I looked directly at Ethan, who was still in earshot. I've always been a believer in fate, that what's meant for you will come, and what isn't will fall away. I smiled at the crowd. So I'm starting over. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now, I've already spoken to the event staff, and they've agreed to turn this reception into a charity gala. Every leftover plate, every drink, every decoration, it's going to raise funds for women's shelters in the area. Because if there's anything today taught me, it's that no woman should ever have to lose herself for a man who doesn't see her worth. That got a standing ovation. I raised my glass to losing what we thought we wanted and finding what we deserve. Cheers rang out like thunder, and Ethan, he left quietly. No goodbye, no fight, just a broken man walking out of his own wreckage. Judith was already facing an audit. Vanessa's rich boyfriend. He found out about the wedding stunt and dumped her publicly, brutally. It trended on social media for 2 days straight. I went on a week-long solo trip to Greece, and when I came back, the same florist from the wedding sent me a bouquet, along with a card. You were the most beautiful bride we've ever seen. Strong, powerful, unforgettable. Thank you for reminding us what real grace looks like. Life didn't give me the wedding I planned. It gave me something better, a story, a fresh start, and my damn crown back. It had been 6 months since the wedding that never was, and my life had bloomed in ways I never expected. I'd started a podcast, The Almost Bride, where I interviewed women who walked away from toxic relationships right before saying I do. Within weeks, it had blown up. Sponsors, features, even a book deal in the works. Funny how rock bottom makes a damn good foundation. Then, one morning, I got a text from a number I hadn't deleted, but really should have. Ethan, can we talk? I stared at it for a moment, sipping my coffee. It was followed by another. Ethan, I know I messed up. I've been going to therapy. I think about you every day. I nearly laughed. 6 months ago, he left me humiliated in front of 200 people and ran off with the ex, who called me replaceable. Now he wanted to talk. Therapy or not, his time was up. I didn't reply. Instead, I took a screenshot and posted it on my podcast's private Patreon page. The caption? Spoiler alert. Healing is when their apology no longer means anything. The comments blew up, but the best part, later that same week, I got a message from someone unexpected. Vanessa's ex, the wealthy businessman she left Ethan for again after the wedding blew up. Apparently, she had tried to scam him too, this time pretending she was pregnant. He'd hired a private investigator. It turned out she'd been doing this to multiple men across 3 states. She was arrested. The headlines. Socialite grifter busted in multi-state. Romance scam victims. Include groom left at altar. I saved the article and framed it. Call it closure. Judith, meanwhile, had gone silent since the IRS seized her business assets. Every so often I'd get a message from someone in Ethan's extended family, asking if we could talk. I ignored them all, because I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. Somewhere in another version of my life, I married Ethan, kept the peace with his mother, and played nice with Vanessa. But not in this life. Not in my life. Now, every time I walk past a mirror, I don't see a rejected bride. I see the woman who turned a nightmare into a comeback story. And I wouldn't trade that for 1,000 white dresses. 3 weeks after Vanessa's mugshot made national headlines, I got a letter. Yes, an actual handwritten letter. It came in a plain envelope with no return address. But the second I saw the handwriting, I knew. Vanessa? The same girl who called me a placeholder, who had the nerve to smile at me in a wedding dress meant for someone else. Now she was writing from a holding cell. The letter began, I know I don't deserve your time, but please, just read this. I rolled my eyes, but I kept reading. Curiosity won. Everything fell apart after the wedding. Jackson dumped me, the pie exposed everything. And now my parents won't even take my calls. I'm facing fraud charges in 3 states. They say I might get up to 10 years. I don't know what to do anymore. You were always the strong one. Maybe that's why I hated you. There it was, the confession she never gave in person. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know. I wish I'd been more like you. At the bottom was a prison contact number. If you ever want to talk or yell, I'd understand. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer I never opened. She didn't get a reply. Not from me, but a few days later, I received another message, this time from Ethan's sister, Claire. Someone I hadn't spoken to since the disaster. Claire, Ethan lost his job. He's been evicted. Mom won't let him move back in. He's not okay. He keeps asking if you'd talk to him. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I replied, tell him. I hope he finally learned what doing the right thing really means. And then I blocked the number. Vanessa in jail. Ethan alone. Judith broke and bitter. As for me, I had just bought a new apartment overlooking the city skyline. I was scheduled for an interview with a major talk show to discuss healing after betrayal. But more than that, I had peace. And peace. That was the real revenge. The sun filtered through the tall windows of my new home office, a cozy, modern loft filled with plants, books, and the soft hum of jazz playing in the background. Outside, the city buzzed, but inside, everything was calm. Mine. I sipped my coffee slowly, scrolling through the finalized manuscript of my second book. Burned the Dress, Walking Away and Winning Anyway. The first had been a bestseller. The podcast, now syndicated. I had an entire team, a studio, sponsors lining up. My face had been on the cover of Elle, listed under Voices Women Trust. I never imagined that getting left at the altar would become the very thing that saved me. But sometimes destruction clears the path for something real. Speaking of real, my husband entered the room, barefoot, holding our sleepy golden retriever puppy in his arms like a baby. Baby, she ate your slippers again. I'll forgive her. I smirked, but only because I like her more than I liked my ex-fiance. He laughed, walked over, kissed me on the head, and said, "The bar wasn't that high." His name was Marcus. We met 2 years after the wedding. He was a guest speaker on one of my podcast panels, quiet, thoughtful, kind in a way that didn't scream for attention but settled into your soul. And when he proposed, he didn't kneel in front of a crowd. He waited until it was just the two of us, under the stars, whispering, "No drama, just forever if you'll have me." And I did. We got married in Italy. Just 20 guests. No mother-in-law trying to sabotage it. No former flame lurking in the shadows. Speaking of former flames, every once in a while, I'd hear whispers. Ethan was working odd jobs. Last I heard, he was a delivery driver in another state. Judith moved in with her sister. Her business never recovered. Vanessa, released on parole last year. Word is, she works at a diner under a fake name. One of my listeners actually recognized her and sent me a selfie. I didn't post it. I didn't need to. The past had burned, and I had built a throne from the ashes. Now, I mentor young women. I speak at conferences. I live a life that feels soft and strong at once. I wear my scars like armor and sometimes like accessories. There's a framed photo on my desk of me in that white dress, the one meant for a wedding that never happened, and under it, a note I wrote to myself the day I walked away. He did what was right for him. You did what was right for you. And that made all the difference. Some stories end in weddings. Mine started with one that didn't, and it turned out better than I ever imagined.